Jesus is the answer for the world today.
Welcome to another Saturday through the Bible. Last week we saw how all of mankind became broken when Adam and Eve disobeyed God. They ushered sin and evil into the earth and all humanity. Today we're going to get to see just how bad it got. In Genesis chapter 6 from verse 5 to 8, it reads, "When the Lord saw that man's wickedness was widespread on the earth, and that every scheme his mind thought of was nothing but evil all the time, the Lord regretted that he had made man on earth, and he was grieved in his heart. Then the Lord said, I will wipe off from the face of the earth mankind, whom I created, together with the animals, creatures that crawl, and birds of the sky, for I regret that I made them. Noah, however, found favor in the sight of the Lord." It goes on to read in Genesis chapter 6, verse 11, "Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with wickedness." This greatly grieved God. So he made up in his mind that he was going to wipe out the whole earth and all of its inhabitants. And he did that with a great flood. But not without saving the only righteous man on the earth, Noah. God instructs Noah to build an ark that him, his family, and 2 of every creature of the earth will reside in. Noah obeys God, and it rains for 40 days straight, non-stop, morning, noon, and night. And the earth is flooded. Noah and his family end up staying in the ark for over 204 days. When they finally came out, Noah sacrifices unto God. And in Genesis 8, verse 21 to 22, we see God's response to Noah's sacrifice. It reads, "When the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, he said to himself, I will never again curse the ground because of man, even though man's inclination is evil from his youth. And I will never again strike down every living thing as I have done. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night will not cease." You know, God goes on to make a covenant between Noah and the earth in Genesis chapter 9 from verse 12 to 17. And this is what it says. It says, "And God said, this is the sign of the covenant I am making between me, you, and every living creature with you, a covenant for all future generations. I have placed my bow in the clouds, and it will be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I form clouds over the earth and the bow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all the living creatures. Water will never again become a flood to destroy every creature. The bow will be in the clouds, and I will look at it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and all the living creatures on the earth." God said to Noah, "This is the sign of the covenant that I have confirmed between me and every creature on the earth." Okay, so the rainbow that we see in the clouds is God's bow. And when God sees that bow, a rainbow to us, he remembers this covenant. So what do we learn from the flood? Well, the narrative of the flood points us to Jesus and our need for him. You know, sin in the heart of humanity causes us to continually do evil in God's sight. So this is why there's pain and wickedness and hatred and greed and corruption and neglect and injustices in the world, and the list goes on. And guess what? We are all a part of that, and we are deserving of God's judgment and death. But God remembers his bow. He remembers his covenant, and he remembers his promises to save and restore humanity back to him. And he did this through himself in Jesus Christ. Just as Noah, a man considered righteous by God, made a sacrifice that pleased God, Jesus, the only truly righteous one, became a sacrifice through his death on the cross on behalf of the whole world's sin, past, present, and future. Through Jesus, the Father is pleased eternally with us when we accept his sacrifice on the cross and surrender our lives to him. So when you see a rainbow, remember and know that God has kept his promise. That water will never flood the earth and destroy it. More importantly, I pray that it will be a reminder to you and to me that God keeps his promises. And when we deserved his judgment, he gave us a greater and everlasting promise and mercy in Jesus Christ. So today, I want to encourage you and your family to remember when you see the rainbow, to know that God is a God who keeps his promise, and we have the promise of mercy and eternal life through Jesus Christ. Have a blessed Saturday.